Hey guys, hello. It is Tammy with Cheers to Creativity, and we are gonna do a background. I'm a real big fan of backgrounds that have a little more interest than just being one solid color. And this is gonna be a fun one for a project that's coming up with us, and it's called Bokeh or Bokeh, depending on how you say it or who teaches you. And it's the idea of that diffused light in spots in your background. And photography, you see that often where you have almost just this almost illusion of lights here and there. I'm just going to pull this up real quick so I can watch. There's so many different ways to do this. And I think I've done it different every time I've done it. But we're going to try one or maybe two different ways to do it just to get you an idea of how this could work. Of course, I did not know I was going to be able to do this until the very last minute, so I apologize for the late broadcast, but in this case, it doesn't really matter. I want you to know that I did paint, the first one I'm going to show you, I painted the canvas gray. You wouldn't have to, but sometimes not having to fight that bright white of the canvas can be helpful. So just put you down like such. I wonder if they would let, no, it's not gonna let me. We'll do it this way. And it does help a little bit if you know what you're gonna be painting. I have an idea what we're gonna be painting, but I will tell you, I'm gonna want there to be some idea of some greens, some blues, there's gonna be some pinks and some other pretty colors peeking through. And this is something that gets done in some layers. So I'm actually going to start with, I'm looking for my colors. Boy, I haven't been sitting here all week. Well, I was here Tuesday, yes, which was only yesterday, but it feels a lifetime ago. I'm looking for, how's a green medium? Okay, so the method I'm going to show you here is going to be a matter of blending different paints and then going over them and giving them another layer and then adding some circle-ish spots of light. And when I watched this being done, oh, that was for the other one. She did use a mop brush. This is a little different than what I've done before. And she used kind of a scrubby brush. Now, to me, this could even just be one of our well-loved brushes. And you want to start with a dry canvas. Okay, then we're going to start with a medium color here to begin with. Like I said, I think I'm going to want some green toward the bottom. And you're just going to want to be able to apply this fairly liberally. Maybe a little here, maybe some over on this side. Maybe even a little back up here. Now, so I've got this on here. What I want to do is I want those edges to be a lot softer. So I'm going to actually use this little scrubby brush and just kind of pull them so they're not these harsh edges. So I'm kind of just scrubbing this color in. Of course, if I wanted to pull this onto the sides, I could. And then if I need to, I could even pull from the center to even soften them even a little more. Now, a mop brush, which looks like this, you, for the most part, do not want to get wet while you're painting, as a rule. You know, I'm a rule breaker too, so sometimes that could be a little different. And I actually find one of the best mop brushes is the blush brushes that you can pick up at Dollar Tree. They don't shed as much, which is a nice thing. I'm going to spread this out a little more. Now, I will tell you this particular technique, because we're going to build this up in layers, is not going to look real pretty to begin with. I am going to just kind of bring a little of this color on the side. Hello, Joanne. I've been thinking about you. Okay, so I'm just going to pull a little on the side. I'm going to let it just soften this edge a little bit because I don't want it any harsh edges. This is still a little harsher than I want. But I will also say at this point, we are just pretty much getting some color down. Now, again, it does help if you know what you're going to be painting. I do know what I'm going to be painting, but I've never painted it before, so I'm not exactly sure where the color placement is going to be. So I may have to alter this for our project once I actually paint the item. But the idea here is just to learn a little bit about the bokeh or bokeh. I've heard it pronounced both ways. So you can decide. Now, like I said, you do want to do at least these first steps dry. So I'm going to be adding more color to this, but let's just make sure my green edges especially are dry. I don't really care so much if my centers are dry. And I said I want my colors in the background of this to be soft, but I want them to kind of have a bit of a spring feel. So I'm going to start by pulling just a soft pink. And again, I'm just going to think I probably would want a little bit of it popping in through here. I probably will want a little bit behind the main subject. And probably a bit up here too. Now, as you can tell, that is not very great painting. It's very scribbly. And I'm going to go ahead and take this kind of scruffy brush that I should have rinsed out. You probably want to keep this pretty dry too. You probably could use a stencil brush too to kind of blur this out. But there we go. I'm going to pull it into here. The idea is just you don't want to have any harsh edges, okay? So I probably should be working these one at a time. So maybe when we do our project, we will work one at a time. But if your paint edges do start to dry, just dampen your brush a little bit and then just kind of soften them so they soften into nothingness. Let's do this one. So what we're aiming for is to create that really soft, diffused light that you can, you see it, I probably see it more in photograph art than I do in acrylic art, but it's fun anyhow. So we're going to create a bit of acrylic art too. So what I'm doing first is just laying down those colors, and then I'm just trying to make sure I don't have any super harsh edges. And then I'm just going to kind of dust them again with the mop brush, knowing that this is not a one and done, okay? I really do think we're going to want to bring a little more pink over into our green here. I was trying to find a really good example of one I've used before, probably the daisies that we did probably last year or the year before. It's probably as close as I could come up with, but this is going to be much more circular. I'm just going to rinse that out. I'm going to pick up a little, this is periwinkle. So it's kind of a purpley blue. Oops, it needs to be shook up, something fierce. Don't let these colors scare you at this point. I promise it's going to look a whole lot better. I promise. So I know we're going to have a little bit of color popping in through here. Oh, I needed to make sure that was dry first. Let's try to be careful. Bring in a little green over here, or a little blue, little of this periwinkle into the green. Definitely know I'm going to want a little more here. And I'm going to go back to softening those edges. And be a little careful when I get into those pinks because I should have dried it. It's best to do these colors that soften into another color while that color is dry. Otherwise, you're going to get a mix of colors. But that's okay too. You know what? Let's go with there's no mistakes, only design changes. So I'm trying to avoid having any harsh edges. And you can still end up with harsh edges even when you blur things out, so you're going to have to scrub them in a little bit. Scrubbing things here. Hope you guys are having a nice day. I hope the weather is breaking for you. We had a beautiful day yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday. Yesterday, I absolutely had to be outside while the weather was nice. Okay. Let's keep smearing these in. Okay, I'm gonna worry about my sides a little later. I'm just gonna try to soften these in a little more. Now that looks pretty obnoxious at this point. We really want to make this blend a whole lot more. And I think the way I'm gonna do that is, well, I love that periwinkle. I think we're gonna bring in a lot more of the lighter color, lightening it up quite a bit. I'm gonna dry this off. A bit of glitter. All right, grabbing some white, and I'm going to think about lightening up this periwinkle substantially. Just going to make it almost more of a lavender color, which is okay. Let's bring some in here. Let's bring some in here. Maybe even lighter. That's probably going to be too light, but that's okay. Okay. And I'm going to try doing it with this. I'm going to dry this brush, because this brush is pretty scruffy too, and see what I can do about just softening those edges. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm going to pull these out. I have softer colors layered on top. It's really interesting if you ever have the inclination to just, as we call doom scroll over on Instagram. People do bokeh backgrounds so differently. Everybody's so different. And some of them I really like the way they turn out. Some of them I really don't think they're going to turn out until the end. So there's all sorts of ways to do it. But the idea here is, and we're going to get to this very shortly, we're going to start creating little pockets of light. But I really felt like we had gotten a little too dark, so we're going to lighten some of this up. I'm going to mop some of this. And sometimes it's just fun to do a technique that doesn't have true rules. Okay, so we've kind of softened all the edges that we've put down. I want to mop this kind of to make it even softer. I'm going to do one more thing before we get into doing our little circles. And even when you've mopped it, if you see a spot like right in here, this really needs to just blend a little more. So I've just picked, it's a slightly damp brush. And I really want it to blend more into here. Oops, it's alive. Really soften there. I do want to add some depth into my pinks. So I'm going to go ahead and Oh yes, you can blend and soften. I promise, Cindy. The two things of blending and softening, like on this one, because I didn't want the pink to blend initially with that green, I wanted to make sure it was dry. Now, if I was doing a sky, for instance, and I was going from maybe sand to a beach or ocean color, I would want those colors to blend. And so I'd wanted to do it more wet on wet. So it's all kind of like how we want the blend to work. And sometimes you just have to play a little more. But I'm going to do those about there just to give it a little more depth. And we'll go back to our scrubbier brush to kind of soften those edges. And actually one of my favorite ways to teach blending is to start with, let's say you're going to just blend blues. Let's just make it super simple. We're going to blend blue colors. Paint your whole background. I didn't really think I wanted to do that, but it turned out okay. One shade of the blue, maybe the medium shade, and then work with the dark on the bottom and the light on the top, and let it blend in both ways. The nice thing about that is, especially if you just use one color, but you create the values. So you have maybe a light blue, a dark blue, and a medium blue. They'll blend much more seamlessly. Oops. Because you know they're the exact same colors. They're not going to fight each other. I think this needs to soften a little more. So let's... softening these a little more. And then with this method, we can actually start it now. Softening this up. Soften. So we've got these spots of color, right? So you're going to want to make circular motions. There's a little circle, a little circle, a little circle. How did that one get to be blue? I don't know. So let's rinse our brush. Let's dry this. I'm going to make sure I have those colors on my plate, but I'm also going to grab a little tiny bit of yellow. And this is where I think a blender brush is good. And a blender brush is kind of, it's not rounded like a filbert. It's more like it's tight rounded. And I do like to use them, but you can certainly just use kind of a scruffy flat brush as well. So I'm going to start this by picking up a little bit of the first pink we used. Just a little bit of it. I'm going to make little circles. Let them get softer as they go out. Dance a few of these around. I'm pretty much going until I run out of paint. I don't want these to be dots. I want these to be really, really soft. So you might even come back after you run out of paint and soften the edges a little more. Okay, so use that color. Now I'm going to pick up that color and a little bit of white. A little bit. I'm going to tap it off here first, so this should be slightly different. It's a little too bright. Soften that up. Okay, so I've got a couple of the pinks. I just wiped that off. You saw I didn't clean it per se. I'm going to mix a little bit of that green with a little bit of the yellow to get a different shade. I have not reloaded my brush. I'm going to pick up a little green again. This time I'm going to pick up just a little white. Kind of mix them, so that's kind of gave it more of a more minty versus the lemon lime look. These are very, very random. Doesn't it look different already? Okay, so then it becomes, you can keep going this way. Do we want to keep going? Yeah, let's go. Let's keep going. I'm going to use that brighter pink and some white. Of course, I'm going to get a lighter pink, but it's a different shade than the other one that we use. So do a little here. I'll let some of them get a little bigger. Now, the other way I have seen these done is by taking one of the pouncers. We'll try to add that when we get to the next step. And then you just mop them out. So I need to decide if I need a little more color. I feel like I need a little more white to yellow, yellow to white. So I picked up yellow and white, wiped it off. Actually, I still had pink in my brush, so let me scrub that off. Try that again. Get some clean white. Picked up a little yellow and a little white. So what I'm making is like a lemon yellow. I'm going to brush most of it off. I'm going to let these be a little more concentrated, I think. Okay, let's just pick up a little more white, still leaving a little of that yellow in there. These overlap. Guess I'll have to come back and do my edges. Okay, so you have this very dispersed line. Cindy says it's interesting. Yes, it could be interesting. Then I have seen bouquet also done. I'm gonna wait and do. I'll show you the next version. I'll do those in the next version. Okay, I've seen it where they just kind of come in with something much smaller. Let me see if I've got a smaller brush. I'm gonna just use a little round and maybe a couple of the same colors, but they're very small. So I just picked up the straight light pink that I had used. And they stand out a little more. I actually think if you go and tap them, they blend in a touch better. But what do I know? You know, sometimes finger painting comes in handy. I'm going to do a couple more little pink ones. Now remember, this is supposed to be just your background. Now I will tell you, my vision is going to have our main character here, and we're going to see some flowers around here too. I'm going to pick up a little white, the tiniest bit of white, and I'm just going to add just a few little sparkle dots. Okay, so that is one way to kind of get this illusion of this one has many colors in it. When I'm looking, the nice thing about doing this with you guys is as I look at the iPad, I see a couple things that really are standing out to me. And I'm gonna take most of this off. I'm going to see if I can just soften the edges. Well, we're going to soften it with a different color, I guess. It really was standing out when I looked at it. So we'll just use up what we have in this brush. And we've got this very polka dotty, but very soft polka dotty background. Okay, that is one way to do it. I'm going to get rid of these. Set them aside. I'll come back and catch my edges. But fun background. I think it's something different. I'm going to do the other version just on a white one. This happens just to be a canvas board. I can speak. And I am going to be smart. I know it's not like me. This I have done numerous times with artist grade paints or heavy bodied acrylics. I'm going to give it a try using our regular paints. And what this one is going to use a sponge. And the nice thing about a round sponge is you have all this surface area that you can add different colors cleanly if you need to. So the colors I want on this one, what do I want? Let's still kind of think with a green. But I think I want a deeper blue. Let's go. That's Payne's Gray. It's so weird not having my paints on my table. Okay. So I grabbed Prussian blue. I grab Prussian blue. Oh, I want something a little funner for my green. Don't have any real fun colors over here. Let's go a little more. You know what? I'm actually going to grab, I was thinking of as bluegrass or possibly even mermaid tail. Let's start with those, and then we'll have a little yellow and a little white going on here. Okay, so I'm going to just drop a few drops in here. And I'm going to use part of this. This is going to make this really messy, but that's okay. It's heavier up here. Then I'm going to use just a couple dots of this color. Like I said, you could use bluegrass or mermaid's tail. I just wanted it to be a little more blue than some of the greens I have here. So that should be plenty. I'm going to turn it and do this color to keep it a little cleaner down here. Mix it in with a little bit of my blue in here. So you get this really soft mix by using a sponge. I'm even pulling a little more of the blue back down here a little bit. I haven't turned the sponge to blue, but I've definitely picked some up. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of yellow. And I might pull that a little further here. And again, I'm going to turn my sponge to try to kind of start more clean. It's not going to stay very clean very long. And what happens when you mix yellow and blue? It makes a green. So you have a different shade of green there now. And when I mix the yellow, I need just a touch more yellow. Down this way. Because our craft paints don't have quite the pigmentation that heavy body paints have, it's possible we have to use a little more or go back and give it another coat on them just to cover as much as we want. Here. Really lighten a little bit here, okay? And then I'm going to go, I've got just a tiny clean spot, pick up some white. So this is a very different way to get a blended color. But a very effective way to get a sponge color. And this is a motion I don't use much, but it really works well for knowing we're going to have some little swirls on here. So I'm just twisting as I go. Okay. And so that's what this background sort of looks like. I guess it was a good thing I put my gloves on. Then I'm going to grab all three sizes. I grabbed several sizes of these daubers. And I'm going to, I think I'm going to pick something. Let's pick a different shade of green first. So I've got the green on my sponge, right? And I'm just going to twist a few. And mop brush, please. Soften those in. It's got very soft in. Let's try maybe a little, I'm not going to clean my brush, I'm going to mix some yellow into it. I need a little paint. And again, I'm just going to try to soften those. Let's go to the next size, and I'm going to actually pick up some pink, so it's a different color than what's been on there. I'm just going to smearing it so it gets on my thing, and I'm going to come in here and swirl, 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 swirl. Back to my mop brush. You use a mop brush, you're barely touching it. Oh, let's do another color with that. I'm going to pick up a little bit of the white and a little tiny bit of periwinkle still on there, okay? Yeah, let's do one up here. Don't be afraid to overlap. It's a pretty white. It's okay. iPad is ding, ding, dinging. Okay. Let's switch to the smaller one. I'm going to go straight into yellow. Remember, I did not dry the background completely, so it's okay if it still picks up some of those colors a little bit here and there. And this is one that it's really good to step away from, just to get an idea of it, because when you're sitting in front of it, it looks very different. I have the advantage of I've got the iPad next to me, so I can tell it looks different, but I'm okay with it. I'm still going to use that small one. I didn't clean it. I'm going to go into white. Okay. It's soft. That was definitely wet. Let's try to dry that off a little more. Okay. I want to show you one other way you can make those little circles. And it's something that we have a lot of, and it's our stencil brushes. You could have started with a larger stencil brush. I'm going to come back in here now with just, I might actually come in with, we'll use this dark blue. Let's see what happens. We're experimenting. If we can get paint out of the bottle. Okay, well, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to tap a little off my paper towel. Just like we did those, we can soften those. What I want to use this for is little white ones. I'm going to go into the white, tap it off. The smaller ones. I'm going to come back by the white ones. Push down a little bit. This should soften them with all these colors. And you keep going and going until you are happy with what you have. So, a very kind of fun background, and we're going to be adding something to it over the next bit of time. So, I'll let this dry. I'll post pictures of these, and hopefully by the end of the week I will have the pattern for what we're going to do next Wednesday. My schedule is just really off right now. It'll be okay really soon, but let's plan on 2 o'clock next Wednesday. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. Happy Mother's Day, and until I see you again, cheers. Goodbye.